Well, hello. And today I'm asking, are you telling yourself stories that are sabotaging your success? What might those stories be? Hello, Sigrid Kaste here, book writing, publishing, and marketing specialist. I help women in business elevate their leadership and authority by writing and publishing a marketing optimized book. And I have with me Carolina Becker. Hello, Carolina.
Good morning.
Carolina is a heart-centered mindset coach who empowers people to break through their next level by reconnecting to their authenticity, redesign their strategies, and by removing limiting beliefs and conflicting patterns that keep you stuck. And conflicting patterns, that ties into storytelling, Carolina, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
What's this about storytelling in our mind?
So about storytelling, so there is the formula of unhappiness, let's say, is exactly that. We tell ourselves stories, and these stories come from when we were way little, and when we were growing up. We all have these generations before us that have been telling us what to do, what not to do, what is good and what is bad, what we feel should be a good life, right? Most of us have the I should have a 9 to 5 job. I should have um, uh, a family. I should have children. I should have, and it's very difficult to break away from that, basically.
Mm-hmm. It's sort of like being immersed. We're immersed into it. We've been under that influence of experiences and the way we've interpreted those experiences, because it's not always the full story that we perceive, I guess. And then we tell ourselves that something has a meaning that someone else who might have been there at the same time interpreted to a different meaning. Is that how you are sharing it?
Absolutely, yes. So I always compare it with a traffic jam. So when you look at the traffic jam and people in a traffic jam, they are like, you have all kinds of emotions that are displayed in a traffic jam. So, and I honestly, I truly went through all of them throughout of my life when I was in a traffic jam, and I was in traffic jams a lot because I was part of the rat race, right? I had a corporate 9 to 5 job for a very long time. I loved it, but it was a rat race, and I was in a traffic jam every morning, and when I went to work, and every evening when I came back home. And if you look around in a traffic jam, I mean, the traffic jam is what it is. There is nothing different for me or the person next to me, or the person in front of me or the person behind me. Doesn't each and every person is in that exact same traffic jam, and so there's people there that will get very angry with the situation. They will get angry and because of the story they're telling themselves. There's people that get sad because of the story they're telling themselves. There's people that get actually happy. And at the very end, when I started to understand how I was influencing my own mood, that would be me. I would be in that traffic jam and I would tell myself the story. Oh, this is so nice. I get another 15 minutes of me time in a traffic jam. Just so I would cruise through that traffic jam and I would come out on the other end feeling happy, feeling relaxed, feeling, oh, I had 15 more minutes for me, enjoying my takeaway coffee in my car. But there is also the person next to me that was angry. There's probably a story in that person's head, some story that I told myself when I still got angry. saying, oh, if I am not in time for that meeting, my manager will get angry with me, my colleagues will be waiting, I will be the last one stepping into the room, everybody will look at me as unprofessional. And so there was an entire story coming out of that. Now, I can tell you that that person that has that anger and that anxiety will come out of that traffic jam, the same traffic jam, completely different than I would.
Mm.
And that person will probably drive the rest of the way to work feeling anxious and feeling stressed. And if you go into your day anxious and stressed, that will be your entire day, unless you find a way to shake it off. But usually then, once you start running, you feel that you're running from one appointment to the next, and there's no moment that you actually take, because it's not that you have, it's taking a moment that you can calm that yourself down. And so you'll go through your day like that because of the story you told yourself in a traffic jam.
And it's actually, from how I see that, from what you're sharing, sometimes people will say they are attracting such situations. Now, hearing what you're sharing here, I would be more inclined to say that it's not that they're attracting it, but because that is their story, they are seeing it that way. So that's what they're looking for. It's not they're attracting it as such to them, but they're looking for where there's more of that. Would that be correct, or would that be a way of looking at that?
I think that's part of it, yes, absolutely. I also believe there's another part of that. So there is actually that thing that we attract. And so we're attracting that, it has the story, absolutely. Because the brain is like a Google search machine. So whatever you put in there, as the quality of the answer is dependent on the quality of the question that you put in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you put in Google, you put something like President of the United States, it will give you a list of I don't know how many presidents, and you might not get the president that you're looking for. So that's one. We definitely have that. Once we direct the brain to look for problems, the brain will always find you problems, because the brain, like Google, is going to try to give you the absolute best search result it can give you. Another part of it is that we do have a frequency as humans, as people. Now, these are measured frequencies. So our brain has a certain brain wave. It operates in a certain frequency. The heart also has a certain frequency. And those frequencies, when we get stressed, so when we're relaxed, everything runs smoothly like this. When we are stressed, especially the brain starts doing like this. And the brain waves become irregular, they become faster, they become spikier. So there is also this frequency that we are sending, and this can be measured up to 6 feet or 2 meters away from us. So anybody being in a circle of 6 feet or 2 meters around us picks up on those brainwaves. Now, science is not yet there to see how that works, and how other people, but I mean, if you stand next to a heating system, if you stand within 6 feet of a heating system, a radiator, you can feel the warmth. So it only makes sense that something with frequency and with radiating something would be perceived by the people that are standing within the 2 meters of it.
It makes perfect sense. So really, that there's two levels, or two ways there, that that when we go into our story, that we can somewhat attract certain things that are in our story, but we also are particularly seeing something that relates and puts our story into the correct context of how we see the story. That's what I'm hearing, because it's important, for example, when we think about the work that I do about the book writing, if the person uses a book title of words where the brain gets a very clear picture, and across the world people have the same picture. If we say a pink pig, everybody knows what a pink pig looks like. We all have the same picture. But if we talk about amplify, different people would have a different image in their head. And I think that is sort of somewhat what we're talking about here. It's what the image that we have, the story we're telling ourselves, that is already there. And therefore, that's what we're looking for, and that's what we're further attracting. Now, I have a very interesting question for you, Carolina, that somebody posted on the event page where we've offered the details of the event, asking or mentioning that there is, or is there a distinction between telling stories to yourself and telling stories about yourself? Is there a distinction, and how would you describe that distinction? Do you want me to say again, or you're clear? All clear? Yeah.
I think I'm clear. Yes. So the way I would see that question is, so telling stories to yourself would be there is a difference, and yet there's not. So telling stories to yourself is, of course, that inner voice that we are either making work for us or making work against us, right? Like the traffic jam. And telling stories to other people would be basically would be that it goes through a filter. So for example, if I am feeling very, very proud of an achievement that I have, very often, especially when we're a little bit shy, we feel that proudness, we stand tall, we have, and then we tell the story to friends. And we sit like this, and we start talking really quiet. Say, I had this thing that I did, and we don't say, yes, I'm really proud of that, because we're a shy person. So everything we have, it goes through a filter, and those filters are created by what we say, by other stories that we tell ourselves, basically, by what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. If we grew up in an environment that parents said, well, calmed us down as children and said, you shouldn't be too outgoing. Don't stick your head how do you say that? Don't stick your head up from the cornfield. And so
the tall poppy is what they say here in Australia. Don't be the tall poppy or we'll chop you down.
There you go, that one. I like that analogy. I'll keep that one in mind. So if you have exactly that, then you will try to, according to that, what you were taught to do, and that what you were taught could be dangerous. The tall poppy being the tall poppy that gets their head chopped off. You will adjust your story based on that. So the story you're telling yourself internally will always be slightly different than the story that you're telling yourself when you tell it to other people. So yes.
So I guess it's very much related to what you said at the beginning already, when you talked about, the story you're telling yourself in a traffic jam that different people tell themselves. So there's a story that we tell ourselves, and then when we go out there in business and we tell a story about us, that is very much shaded or colored by the story, the mind, voice in the mind, the story that we've created for us from that early life, from that upbringing, which is always around how we were treated and what we learned and what we discovered in those early days. Now, when we're talking about coming to the business area of business, you've virtually already given us a really great example around telling stories that sabotage our success in life, which is that very much that traffic jam story. You can take it as, oh, it gives me extra time while I'm sitting here, or I can listen to more extra music or a recording or something, or you can tell yourself, oh, this is terrible, I'm going to be late, da 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 da. That's sabotaging that moment in life, more or less. Do you have an example or want to share a bit more about a sabotaging story that you might even come across with clients quite regularly that really holds them back from achieving in their business or in their work situation, and it holds them back and sabotages them constantly, and they don't even know about it?
Oh, yeah. So I find that we run through phases with our awareness.
Right.
And so some people are not aware. Some people are a little bit aware, and then you have full awareness. I think imposter syndrome is an amazing example of people telling themselves stories. So imposter syndrome is very often perceived as, everybody has their own words of describing it, but it's very often I cannot do it, and I'm not good enough. And people will find out at any moment. And so the story is, very often, so a lot of leaders and executives that I work with have this imposter syndrome, and basically having a lot of people looking up at you and looking at you for guidance and for coaching, right? Because leaders are basically coaches. They feel like, but what if I give the wrong answer, and I'm not really doing anything, I'm just doing what feels right, or I have this limited data and I'm anyway making a decision, and they internally feel very insecure of their decisions, mostly of how they're guiding their team, of how people perceive them. And so the fear there is that people will find out about about them not being as good as everybody thinks they are. And so, right, so the story is that I'm very often that people very often tell themselves is exactly that. I just made a $1 million decision, and I pretended that I was confident about it, that I knew exactly what it was about. But in fact, I don't have 50% of the details or 70% of the details. And I just made a decision, partially on data, but partially on gut feeling. What if I made the wrong decision?
That is so interesting that you're talking about this finding out, this imposter syndrome, that even high level executives feel that when people look up to them and they have a lot to say and they're looking for answers, they're asking questions. I mean, that's probably a very strong area in women particular who want to, talking about what I do now, that want to write a book. They have this idea, they're dreaming about it, but there is this level of, what if people find out, because I've written it all down, that I don't really know all these things, or maybe they, they're reading it and they're not really, what if I'm found out? That is a very scary thought. And I guess I admit I've had that thought in the past as well. If I'm giving a presentation talking about something and I'm thinking, do I really know what I'm talking about here?
Yeah.
I mean, I know what I'm talking about, but that thought comes up, doesn't it? That's powerful.
Well, and it's amazing how that can influence your stance, how it can influence your body language, how it can influence your choice of words. And so it becomes, if you go into a presentation like that, it can become an obstacle in telling your story in a way that you come across as confident in the presentation. But besides from that, it makes you feel uncomfortable, right? I mean, all those things put aside, all the outside world put aside, all those thoughts, they just simply make you feel uncomfortable. And uncomfortableness can be seen. Doesn't it's people pick up on micro signals, and uncomfortableness can be seen. So it becomes almost a self-fulfilling prophecy if you have those thoughts and that story running through your head.
So it really is something to work on, particularly when you are in business, when you are leading others, when you are asked by others for guidance, for direction as a manager, as a business owner, when you are coaching, it is really useful to work on that. And look, you have got something that you can share with people. Carolina, talk about your formula of happiness that people can take advantage of to work on that area particularly. Time is going so quickly. I've got so many more questions, but I want to keep a summary. I want to put a summary in a moment, and I want to ask you on that, because there's probably lots of people watching and listening and wanting to know, okay, so I know this, or I feel this. Some might not know it, but now that we've raised that topic and dug into it, that they are now thinking, oh, actually, yes, that must be what it is. So you can help them with that in a particular way, in this particular session that you offer. Tell us a bit about that, please.
Yes, I offer that it's like a mini session to discover on one specific issue or item, to discover how your story and your reality misalign, and to move forward from that. So it's a solution to one specific issue that people are facing at the moment. And indeed, it's the happiness formula.
It's called the formula of happiness, isn't it? Is that correct?
Yes, correct. And it's a tool. It's based on 5-6 questions, depending on the person. It's a tool that that I can teach, that I bring people. I walk people through the tool, and then on the other end, you come out with a solution from the inside out, not from the outside in. You come up with your own solution. And then if you can apply those questions, and I will give them to people afterwards, you can apply those questions to everything else that you're facing. And so it's amazing. It's a Tony Robbins tool. I'm a Tony Robbins trained coach, and so it's one of those little things that we can do for other people that makes life amazing.
They seem to be so small and simple, and yet they have this huge effect, isn't it? That's what often is what can work for our mind, that we don't know in the first instance. But when somebody like you shows us and gives us the clarity around that, we can take that on board and go forward with that knowledge to other areas as well around.
No, and change really doesn't have to be difficult. I mean, a lot of people think they have to do hard work, and that's not really the case. You have to have a insight that can change. One insight can change a world. So it's not necessarily hard work.
No, it's just knowing what you don't know. Until you do know, you can make a difference. So let me wrap it up with the quick recap on what we've talked about. What is your story? So the story that we tell ourselves comes from a long time ago, and I think they're not necessarily true. They are just our perception of our experience from those times. And those stories that we're telling ourselves are definitely sabotaging our success when they are in the negative, like you have shared with the story being in the traffic, and just generally being on a mindset of seeing what is not working rather than what is working. And you particularly offer a session, a 20-minute call with you called the Formula of Happiness, where you can take the person through a set of questions where those or one particular story can be unlayered, and they're going to say, oh, I didn't realize that this is what it is, and this is what held me back. Something to add to that, Carolina, for this call?
That was an amazing summary, Sigrid, as always.
That is wonderful. So we make sure that the link or the instruction how to get to this call with you is possible, so that people can certainly take advantage of that. And I'm going to announce right now, we're going to do more of these calls. We'll do them once a month, and we invite, again, like we always do, people to send us questions, particular questions that we might be able to answer, particularly for Carolina, around mindset, around this way of being a leader, of perhaps looking at some sort of fear, or thinking that you're not good enough around that, anything in those areas, or questions around you want to write a book, but yes, you have some lack of confidence or some questions around that both of us might be able to answer. That is what we're here for. The next one is going to be in a month's time, and we'll announce it as we usually do right here for you, and links to go to other parts of our profiles will be available as well. That's it from us. Carolina, last parting words from you?
No, just a thank you, and I wish everybody an amazingly happy day.